Next up on the tee, he's a PGA professional that qualified for the 2026 PGA Championship by winning the PGA Professional Championship at Bandon Dunes. It's Jesse Dromer joining us on the Course of Life. Jesse, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're on the podcast the week of the PGA Championship when our audience is listening to this at Aronimink. I'm in Austin. You're based in Houston. It's great to have a Texan as a champion of that event that I've covered the last few years. But for our audience who didn't see, explain what a grind that event was, and specifically last week in the wind out there to outlast over 300 PGA professionals and get the win.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, the extra thing that kind of makes it difficult always is you have to prepare for two different golf courses. And typically, we always play 4 rounds. We play one course each, and then there's a cut, and then we play the same golf course the last 2 days. And typically, the second golf course is a little bit easier. It's a little bit more gettable. This year, the other one, Pacific Dunes, was actually more difficult than Bandon Dunes. So you had to prepare for two golf courses, with different green speeds, completely different environments and holes. So to me, that's always the trickiest thing is, you get your speed out on one course and you have to go get it on another golf course. But, it's just a busy week, 312 players. And then, there's 312 caddies there as well. And then all the family and there's thousands of people out there. And what I learned my first couple was, you really have to save rest. I mean, it's a long week and a lot of guys, really can wear themselves out before the golf tournament even starts. Because
Right.
you think about playing, you have a travel day and then you have 3 practice rounds. So a lot of it, and it's the same thing that goes into the PGA Championships, of just maintaining rest. But yeah, the wind rolled in the last 2 days. It was, pretty much 20 to 30 steady the last 2 days, and you get both Poana greens in the afternoon, and the balls can kind of go anywhere. So to me, putting was the most difficult thing. But being a Texas guy, I was, chipping shots really low, like a lot of like little 8 irons from 100 yards. I was downwind. I hit a 4 iron that rolled 330 yards. So,
Wow.
I could have done without a really good caddy. At a place like that, it's so different and unique. You had to have a good caddy. So fortunately, I had a great caddy from Bandon Dunes that helped me out there.
Nice. And obviously, I know you're Texan. So, yeah, what is your relationship with playing in the wind? It feels like something that seems to come up every year in that PGA Professional Championship. But for people who don't know, Bandon Dunes quite literally sitting like right along the cliffs of the Pacific and the ocean. So, what's the breeze like, and how did you negotiate that for kind of the more full shots? You mentioned kind of you played a lot of low chips around the green as well.
Yeah, and then the tough thing is it was a north wind, which made the temperature in the 40s. But I love the wind. I love tough golf tournaments where even par is a good score, and you don't
Okay.
really see it as much in golf much anymore. But those are just it's kind of how my game is set up to where hit the fairway, stay below the hole, and give yourself a birdie putt. But honestly, those last 2 days, pars felt like birdie. Here's an example for this. One of the holes in the practice round, I hit driver 9 iron, and on Saturday I hit driver 3 wood short of the green. So that just shows how much different the golf course was playing with the wind. But like I said, I love it when it's windy and difficult, and you just have to hang in there and make pars and just really keep a good attitude.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, you've definitely played in lots of different places as well, too, because of your playing now, but also your PGA professional background. I want to talk about a couple of interesting stops that you've had along the way. Just like any PGA professional, you always have a little bit of an interesting path along the way to get you where you are before you got back to Texas. But specifically, I wanted to hear a little bit about your time at Fisher's Island. Describe that destination, where that is, and what makes that club so unique.
Well, I mean, some people know Fisher's Island. I think the golf nuts in the world know about it. I mean, it's a top 10 ranked golf course in the country, Seth Rayner design. But literally, Fisher's Island is an 8 mile wide island. It's very wide and it's very narrow, but it's just a private island in between Connecticut and the Hamptons. You have to take a ferry from either side, but it's literally in the middle of nowhere. And then you step foot on the golf course and you're completely blown away. Um, yeah, I was really struggling to figure out where I wanted to work in the Northeast. I knew with
Right.
how hot it is in the summer, it slowed down. I was actually working at Houston Country Club then, and the golf pro let me leave for the summer. And I interviewed with a bunch of clubs, and Fisher's Island just seemed like the right fit. But if anybody ever gets the chance to play it, it's golf heaven. It's an eerie place, and it's just magical.
Were you staying on the island when you worked there, or were you doing the ferry commute?
No, so pretty much all the staff stays on site. I had a house
Okay.
by the driving range, and
Nice.
it was kind of cool. But because I lived by the driving range, I had to take care of the driving range. So I would if I drove by, because it is a thing a lot of people don't know about Fisher Island. The driving range isn't by the golf course. It's like 3 miles away from the golf course.
Oh, geez.
Um, but yes, we had a house on site, and pretty much all you did is work and play golf.
Very cool. Awesome. So there was that on the East Coast. And then way over on the West Coast as well, too. You've got some experience working in the Los Angeles, California region specifically. A couple different courses that stuck out to me, both Lakeside and Los Angeles Country Club, which has hosted a US Open recently as well, too. But what was that experience like for you, kind of was there any culture shock for you being from Texas and going to New York and then to Los Angeles and experiencing what it was like over there to work at a club?
Well, when I was being recruited in high school, I always wanted to go out to California. I really considered UCLA and USC. I really
Okay.
always wanted to go to California. And I actually interviewed with the club the year before I got the job, and they offered it to me, and I didn't accept it. And it came up again, and my boss was saying, you should probably do it. But total culture shock. I went from working at an all men's club in Houston that did 12,000 rounds a year, and then Los Angeles Country Club has over 1,000 members, 2 courses. We were doing 300 to 400 rounds a day. So it was just a huge culture shock. But basically, working at Los Angeles Country Club taught me how to be a golf pro. You had to do everything, and it was a busy place literally every single day. We had the Walker Cup the year I was there, and the U.S. Open was scheduled on there. But it was kind of weird seeing celebrities and athletes, and all these crazy celebrities that I had seen growing up out there.
I was going to ask, what
But it
was the
was
most random or big name celebrity wise you saw when you were working at LACC?
Well, the funny thing about the club is celebrities aren't allowed to join, and so they would play pretty much as they could. So I would see Justin Timberlake and Mark Wahlberg pretty much every Monday out there at the club. But it's a special place there, Los Angeles Country Club. I mean, obviously everybody got to see it for the U.S. Open, and I'm excited that they did that. So they showed everybody what's there.
Very cool. That's awesome. And so you've had amazing teaching experience, and obviously your playing career. You played at University of Houston, and then after school, as you're kind of bouncing around from club to club, where does playing kind of fit in for you mentally? Because I know there's lots of different PGA professionals that do kind of a different amount of tournament schedule. Some have play a very aggressive tournament schedule. Some only play a few events a year. How have you kind of navigated that relationship as you've kind of come up in teaching and playing competitively at the same time?
Well, I mean, growing up here in Texas, we had a lot of good junior golfers. So I was playing with Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas and a lot of these guys from a young age. And my goal was always to be a PJ Tour player. When I went to the University of Houston, the goal was to play on tour. And I just kind of lost having fun in college. Golf started to feel like work, and we were doing so many workouts and practices, and then you go to class and you have to do study hall and tutoring. Just an example, the spring of my junior year, I missed 33 days of school.
Yeah.
Um,
Jeez.
so for me, I just kind of lost the fun in it, and decided I wanted to stay in golf and I wanted to be a PJ professional. But no, you're right. I mean, it's hard to practice and work on your game and still work. A lot of people think when you work at a golf course, you are going to play more golf. A lot of people end up playing less golf, but I love to compete. I don't actually really love to play golf. I love to compete. They're two totally separate things. I just love competition and, testing your game basically, and seeing where you are. So that's something I'm going to do forever is, compete and test my game against these guys. And you never know. I mean, if I do get an additional 6 PJ Tour exemptions for next year. And what I'm really hoping for is to really utilize these and play well and maybe take advantage of these to where, maybe I could transition into playing full time one day. But, I have to get at the golf course before the sun comes up and hit balls. I'll practice in between lessons, and then
Yeah.
typically I'll stay until dark and practice. But I hit balls every day. I at least play. I'm on the golf course playing. Like even if I'm doing a playing lesson, I'm always hitting shots. So I'm really fortunate I'm in an instructor role where I have a lot of freedom and flexibility to work on my golf game.
No, that's cool to hear, and it's very good perspective too. And you seem to have it kind of very, correct with where your golf game's at in life, and the compete versus golf thing. PGA champion, who I've heard say that before, Brooks Koepka, very similar philosophy in that aspect too. Loves to compete, loves the moment and the competition aspect of the game. So that definitely resonated for me as well too. And you mentioned those 6 PGA Tour starts. Explain to everyone how that actually works. You're going to have the opportunity to essentially get an exemption into 6 PGA Tour events. Are those mapped out for you? Do you get to select any of those? What's the calendar on those look like?
Yeah, so it always runs May to May. So the previous champion Tyler, his exemptions just started this May. They'll run through this year up to next May, and then May of 27 is when my 6 start. The only stipulation is so you get 6 exemptions, 3 have to be opposite field events,
Okay.
and the other 3, you can choose. And then so with the PGA it's 7, and then I do have a chance. The Southern Texas PGA has an agreement with the PGA Tour, and we also have 3 exemptions. So the max I'm eligible for is 8. So I do have a chance to qualify for one here in the South Texas PGA and get 8. But that would be, that's almost, I would say, a third of a season, if not more. Tour starts, and those are all guaranteed. They're not, subjective. I mean, those are guaranteed starts. So, for me, that's really big with endorsements. I mean, a lot of companies will be willing to sponsor you and put their
Right.
logo on you for, 8 events.
Yeah, definitely. There's some opportunity there. So I'm excited to see that and where those events fall as well too. In terms of playing up ahead right now this week, as everyone's listening, it's going to be, I believe, third PGA Championship for you. Is that correct?
Yes, this will be my third one.
Okay, yeah, I know you knocked on the door last year at that PGA Professional Championship, but that was just you and I agreed before we hopped on. That was just a Tyler Call it blowout. There was nothing we could do about that one, even you. But it was cool to see you redeem yourself and get the win to be on top now at such a great destination now. Any
Sure.
thoughts on Aronimink, the host course? Do you have any experience with Aronimink, or do you know anything about it at all?
Well, I'm a huge golf course architect fan, and it's funny. I got into golf course architecture to actually help my golf, and I've learned a lot from strategy based on why these architects designed the hole the way that they did. And I used to get intimidated by slope, and I met architects, and they introduced, well, the slope is there to use it. So um, I'm a big architect fan, so I mean Donald Ross is up there. I've played quite a few Donald Ross courses, and typically the greens are diabolical. I don't know if any of your listeners have had the treat to play a Donald Ross golf course,
It's so funny.
but typically,
The course I played my high school matches on in Massachusetts was a Donald Ross course, so I learned quickly how valuable it was to be on like the right part of the green and everything like that, and seeing how diabolical the playing slopes can be, like you mentioned.
yeah, and you have to stay below the hole. But based on the research I've done, to me it looks like a second shot golf course, and those to me are my favorite type of golf courses. The fairways, they look pretty wide. I don't know if they're going to play as wide if the fairways get firm and their slopes. Balls can, kind of veer off of them. Like a good example of that is Olympic Club. Olympic Club has huge fairways, but they play half the size because of the slope.
Mm.
But to me, it does look like a second shot golf course, and like I said, if you stay below the hole and if you have good speed on the greens, from my 2 PJ championships, I short sighted myself a couple times, and you can almost embarrass yourself. I completely whiffed one at Quail Hollow, and then I saw a couple other guys do it, so I didn't feel as bad. But you have to leave the ball in the right spot, and I think that's why Scotty is the best in the world because his bad shots are still in good spots.
Right, that's
Um,
very well put. Yeah, there's a lot of
but
test ahead, and specifically, yeah, you mentioned kind of lean into that the idea of what have you learned from the past two now in terms of like what you need to work on, when you get there, and what your kind of Monday to Wednesday prep looks like leading into the PGA this week.
Yeah, so I always get there Saturday, and I'll play the golf course Sunday. Sunday's still kind of a quiet day. A lot of the guys are going to be playing in the event at Quail Hollow, but I always like to go out on the golf course. There's no fans on Sunday, and it's just kind of a really calm, walk before the storm. I mean, I would encourage anybody to go to a PJ Championship. It's pretty unbelievable. I've been to the Masters. I haven't been to U.S. Open, but the amount of people in the grandstands, there's just a lot of people. But once again, I just learned you really have to maintain rest for the week. It's a busy week. There's a lot of obligations, and the golf courses will wear you out. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be playing close to 75, 7,600 yards. So it's just going to be a long week.
Definitely, for sure. I think you're going to be up to the challenge, though. Again, it's Jesse Dromer joining us here. He's the 2026 PGA Professional Champion playing in this week's PGA Championship at Aronimink. So you mentioned you had a local caddy at Bandon, but what's going to be the situation for you? Tell me a little bit about who's going to be on the bag for you at Aronimink, and then maybe who else is joining for the trip to watch you play.
Yeah, well, I was so fortunate to get linked up with a local Bandon caddy who had a lot of experience, and he said his green reading travels, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him. He's
Okay.
a phenomenal green reader. That's something for me. I seem to struggle with it. My eyes just see different things. But we really clicked really nicely. He has a good attitude. He kind of gave me two rules at Bandon. He was like, my two rules: try your best and keep a good attitude. And it kind of made me keep an eye on my attitude, knowing that, hey, this guy's not going to be out here if I have a bad attitude. Like, he's choosing to spend this time away from his life to be here with me, and I'm going to respect that. But I'll have quite a few people there. I'll say probably about 20 people with my brother and some family and friends. And, it's always a highlight for them, bringing them inside the ropes and being in that atmosphere. They kind of look forward to it. And, I'm just happy to kind of bring them along because you can't get here without a group of people. I mean, it takes a team of people to support somebody.
Absolutely, for sure. Well said, Jesse. And I'm going to be there myself Monday through Thursday, so I'll look forward to seeing you on the grounds, and I'll be there for your media appearances and stuff like that. So it's a fun way to kind of commemorate the win at Bandon one more time before you tee it up. Again, you'll be teeing up in the PGA Championship starting Thursday. Jesse, let's get into some fun food questions like we like to do with our guests typically. Now, you're in Houston, which is known for food, but kind of like across the board, like a little bit of everything, like all sorts of different cuisines. So I'll just let you freestyle it. What do you enjoy about going out and going out to eat in the Houston area? And what are like your some of your favorite things? Where if you're going to go out for a meal, where would you go?
Well, everybody talks about Mexican food and barbecue, but
Right.
actually, what's underrated in Houston is our Chinatown. We have one of the biggest Chinatowns in the country. I mean, it's just
Wow.
massive. Um, and so to me, it's Chinese food, but it's particularly Szechuan food, which is a little bit spicier. But to me, the Chinese food in Houston is just best in the country.
Okay, I haven't been to that Chinatown, so I need to add that to my list the next time I make a trip there. For our Texans, I always ask a lot of this or that questions to players who I have interview content with. The two popular food questions in the Texan world are sweet tea or Dr. Pepper. Which one are you picking?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't drink either, but if I had the option, I would go sweet tea.
And newly controversial, although I want to see how Texan you are with this answer: Whataburger or In and Out?
Um, Man, I mean, I have to say Whataburger.
Yeah, I
I'll get in
figured.
trouble if I'll get in trouble if I don't.
And coming up, Philadelphia, I'm gonna try and get myself to one of these famous cheesesteak places. Are you a cheesesteak guy at all? Will be able to make time for that at all that week?
I am. I actually went up to Philadelphia one time and I spent the day at Marion and I went to one of the famous places. I can't remember the name, but I waited for like 3 hours. It took forever, but it was totally worth it. I would do it again. But I would say at
Pat's,
some point,
Geno's, Sal's, one of those or something like that.
I think it was Geno's.
Yeah. Okay. Noted. I'm
But
gonna
at
check that
some
off.
point, some point this week, I'll definitely have to do it. But I have to be smart with the schedule. Probably earlier in the week because that's a pretty heavy meal.
Yep. I'm
Um,
thinking that's maybe Tuesday or earlier there. I'm not gonna risk
well,
that on Wednesday for sure.
Well, honestly, though, if I have a late afternoon tea time, I will typically load up with a really big breakfast, and then what I'll end up doing is I'll have a huge dinner the night
Yep.
before, and then I'll have just kind of a light breakfast and kind of go from there.
Okay.
So
All right.
maybe if I go late
Noted.
early, I'd consider it Thursday night, or I'm
The
sorry,
window's
Wednesday
there.
night.
Love it. Awesome. And we always wrap with our 19th hole question. So this is more generically for the golf life. When you get into the clubhouse, whether it's at Riverbend, your home course, shout out to Riverbend, or wherever you play, what do you like to order when you sit down at the 19th hole for a meal and a drink?
The go-to for me is just a Topo Chico and a lime. For me, that's all I need. That's my favorite beverage in the world, Topo Chico. Food wise, I mean, always a club sandwich. I mean, if it's dinner time, I probably won't do it. But if I'm at a golf course, like I always have to try the club sandwich. It's just my favorite thing to get. But after a round, probably just something like some wings or like a flatbread or something small.
Yeah, no, good choices all around indeed. Jesse, thanks for hopping on the course of life. We'll see you out at Aronimink and looking forward to watching you compete.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it.